Paths of Glory is Stanley Kubrick's fourth film, therefore the overarching theme in Paths of Glory is the four. Here we see Kubrick showing four fingers. Here again we see Kubrick and Douglas emphasizing the four by showing four fingers. Here in a poster of Paths of Glory we see the barbed wire having the shape of the four. Here the shape of the four also is present, and here we see the four explained as being a shape that consists out of a cross, which is a horizontal and a vertical line, connected by a diagonal line, like this. And here in the opening shot of the film we see the year 1916, which kind of carries the 4 within it, like this. 1 plus 9 is 10 and 1 plus 6 is 7. So we have 107, which we also see in the movie itself as the number 701. If we leave out the 0 we have a 1 and a 7, which represent the two parts of the cipher 4. In such a way everything in Paths of Glory can be linked back to the 4. Take for example this shot. We see a soldier who pretends he's dead. He pretends because he's startled by the blast. Someone like this is called a four-flusher. In poker, a four-flusher refers to someone who claims a flush, 5 cards in a suit, while holding only 4 cards in a suit. So a four-flusher is a person who cheats. Another word for cheating or misleading is hoodwink. Hoodwink once meant to cover the eyes of someone with a hood or blindfold.
You want a blindfold?
In this way, Path to Glory eventually could be seen as the cinematic equivalent, so to speak, of the cipher 4.
There was something else I wanted to tell you, however, I'm sure that you'll misunderstand my motives in mentioning it.
What was it?
Thanks for watching.
The meaning of the monolith is hidden by its orientation. We're supposed to view it in this position, not upright. And what does this shape correlate with? Getting warmer? Warmer again? Have you figured it out yet? Hot? Red hot? Bingo! The monolith represents the screen on which the viewer is watching the film.
One, two, three, 90. 1, 2, 3, 20. 1, 2, 3, 21. 1, 2, 3, 22.
In Full Metal Jacket, activity and inactivity are presented as a dual thing. Kubrick presents this in a very subtle way. He shows that there is inactivity inside activity.
1, 2, 3, 90. 1, 2, 3, 20. 1, 2, 3, 21. 1, 2, 3, 22. 1, 2, 3, 23. 1, 2, 3, 24. 1, 2, 3, 25. 1, 2, 3, 26. 1, 2, 3, 27.
Gunnery Sergeant Hartman obviously isn't noticing this. Or is it that we, the audience, have so much trust in Gunnery Sergeant Hartman that we don't notice it? If this was true, Gunnery Sergeant Hartman does this on purpose, and then Private Pyle is showing how dull the audience is. Thanks for watching.
I think you've been cheated.
I think I was trying to suggest something about the duality of man, sir.
The what?
The duality of man, the Jungian thing, sir.
Full Metal Jacket is Stanley Kubrick's 12th movie. Therefore, Full Metal Jacket is the cinematic experience of the number 12. There's one whole, which consists out of two parts. It's not a coincidence that duality, the state of being two, is so explicitly mentioned in Full Metal Jacket.
I think I was trying to suggest something about the duality of man, sir.
The what?
The duality of man, the Jungian thing, sir.
The duality of man, as in,
That you, John Wayne? Is this me?
how do you approach yourself? Sometimes you look outwards, sometimes you look inwards. The very first shot of Full Metal Jacket clearly shows the duality of man, as the head, so to speak, is divided into two parts. The lyrics that accompany this shot say,
Goodbye, my sweetheart, hello, Vietnam.
Sweetheart means loved one. Vietnam, of course, was known for its division into two parts, North and South Vietnam. And of course, Vietnam is known for its Vietnam War. The head also is a place of war, a place of two conflicting parts. Therefore, the lyrics accompanied with this shot say,
I don't suppose that war will ever end.
as long as our head is twofold, the war in our head will not end. Gunnery Sergeant Hartman gives one long speech, which visually consists out of two parts, as we go from one part into an opposite part. 12, or the one being twofold, refers to two sides of the same coin, showed in this shot. There is one obstacle with two sides. Private Pyle emphasizes duality, as he is on both sides of the obstacle at the same time. The latrine is called head, and it's showed as a twofold place, as one part folds into the other. Also, in this picture of the mock-up of the latrine set, we see the number 12. So, because Full Metal Jacket is Kubrick's 12th film, everything in Full Metal Jacket is twofold.
Talk the talk. Do you walk the walk?
But also, Full Metal Jacket itself is twofold, as it is one movie that consists out of two parts. Therefore, Full Metal Jacket is a movie which always is in conflict with itself. Thanks for watching.
I guess Stanley saw it all as a package deal. You either cared or you didn't care.
Not caring is associated with indifference and space. Caring is associated with difference and surface, or the screen. The following example will show how space is associated with indifference, or not caring, and surface or the screen is associated with difference, or caring. First, we see how space is associated with indifference, or not caring. We see a shot which tracks back, emphasizing space. Here, we see Dr. Heywood Floyd having an indifferent attitude towards the new discovery, which is the monolith. He browses through the pictures like he doesn't care about the monolith. Also, the way how Dr. Floyd talks about the monolith doesn't make the impression that he cares about it.
Seems to have been deliberately buried. Deliberately buried.
He even laughs about the monolith, like he doesn't take it seriously, like he doesn't care.
I don't suppose you have any idea what the damn thing is, huh? Wish the hell we did. Well, I must say, you guys have certainly come up with something.
After this, we see the spaceship approaching the surface, or approaching the screen. The scene on the surface doesn't have any shots which emphasize space. All shots now emphasize the surface, or the screen's surface, which is emphasized by the light flares. When Dr. Floyd finally touches the surface, or the screen, his attitude becomes different. He now is affected. He now does care about the monolith. Also, the whole atmosphere on the surface is so intense that it's impossible for Dr. Floyd not to care about the monolith. Just as the atmosphere in space is so dull that it's impossible for Dr. Floyd to care about the monolith. Also, when we combine these two shots, we see that Dr. Floyd also is touching his own helmet visor, or his own screen, his own point of view. This indicates Dr. Floyd's realization that his own spatial, indifferent point of view, which didn't care, now has become a superficial, different point of view, which cares. So Dr. Floyd literally and figuratively is touched by the monolith. Thanks for watching. Right at the core of this series lies the question, where is the image inside our head? When we watch a movie, we experience the image both outside as inside ourselves. The image is both object and subject at the same time. Outside of us, the image is local, as it is projected onto a screen outside of us. But inside of us, the image is non-local, as there is no screen inside our head onto which the image is projected. So how the image is being perceived, outside or inside, object or subject, depends on the presence or absence of the screen. This leads us to the definition of the monolith of 2001: A Space Odyssey, which was formulated by Stanley Kubrick himself. In one of the interviews about 2001: A Space Odyssey, Kubrick says, "I intended the film to be an intensely subjective experience that reaches the viewer at an inner level of consciousness just as music does. To explain a Beethoven symphony would be to emasculate it by erecting an artificial barrier between conception and appreciation. The monolith from 2001 is the artificial barrier between conception and appreciation. Like the two-way mirror used in front screen projection, the monolith is both present as absent because one can look both at it and at the same time through it. So in a sense, the monolith doesn't really exist. Hence, it is an artificial barrier between the object and the subject, between conception and appreciation. Here, the monolith, or the movie screen, is presented as an intangible subject, as Dr. Floyd exists inside the monolith. But here, the monolith is presented as a tangible object, as the monolith is located outside or in front of Dr. Floyd. The spaceship looks like an eye, including the optic nerve and the visual cortex at the back of the brain. The eye looks at the world outside. The visual cortex is the act of looking itself. Again, we see the dual nature of the monolith or the movie screen. It's object and subject at the same time. Now, the previous video presented that the outer left area of the screen is connected to the right hemisphere only, and the outer right area of the screen is connected to the left hemisphere only. It's interesting that the outer right area, the area of the object, is connected to the left hemisphere, and the outer left area, the area of the subject, is connected to the right hemisphere. Dr. Ian McGilchrist, former consultant psychiatrist, wrote an almost 500-page book about the characteristics and difference between the left and right hemisphere. Now, of course, it isn't this black and white, but according to McGilchrist, the difference between left and right hemisphere comes down to this. The right hemisphere sees itself connected to the world, whereas the left hemisphere stands aloof from it. So we have the outer left area of the screen, the area of the subject, connected to the right brain, which is connected to the world, and we have the outer right area of the screen, the area of the object, connected to the left brain, which stands aloof from the world. Like our brain, the screen has a dual nature. It's both object and subject.
Okay, turn over.
7.
And that works out to roughly 7 hours.
Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, is Kubrick's 7th film, which makes Dr. Strangelove the cinematic equivalent of the number 7. Water is central in Dr. Strangelove.
Water. That's what I'm getting at, water.
And it's water that is associated with the number 7.
7/10 of this Earth's surface is water. 70% of you is water.
The central location in Dr. Strangelove, the War Room, is shaped like a giant 7. The short top line is the big board, the long diagonal line is the roof, which eventually ends in a single point. B-52 bombers are present inside Dr. Strangelove because the wings of a B-52 bomber are like two 7s. Also, the number 52 refers to the number 7, as 5 plus 2 is 7. In Dr. Strangelove, phones are held in such a way that the short handle and the long cord together form a 7. The film's title design reflects the shape of the 7, as it combines short and long letters. The title design therefore resonates the character of the number 7, which has a short top line and a long diagonal line. The paper, which is held by Group Captain Lionel Mandrake, is shaped like a 7. Also, when Mandrake lays down the paper, one specific area of the paper folds into a clear number 7. 7s are omnipresent in the film. Here we see the number 7, which eventually even is presented with a middle line. We already saw that the central location, the War Room, is shaped like a huge 7, but we also see little war rooms as objects in the film. Here we have such a little 7-shaped war room inside General Jack the Ripper's office. The obvious presence of pistols in Dr. Strangelove is because pistols have the shape of a 7. The presence of the 7 also is a matter of counting. Here we see 7 vehicles. Here we count 7 heads inside the frame. And here there's also 7 heads inside the frame. Dr. Strangelove's way of speaking perfectly creates the possibility to make a audible 7.
I would not rule out the chance to put 7 nucleus of human specimens.
General Turgidson says,
There are 1 or 2 points I'd like to make, if I may.
Then he starts counting to 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Then President Muffley replies,
There are still alternatives left open to us.
So here the 7 is presented as the big alternative, which lies beyond the 6 individual options, which is reflected in the background of this shot. There's 6 individual options, but there's also a 7th alternative. And here there's 6 little envelopes, which are enclosed by a large 7th envelope. Now, as the B-52 bomber already presented, the 7 is often presented as a double 7. The double 7, or 2 times 7, seems to be a recurrent theme in the film. Here on the big board, behind the Russian ambassador, we see 2 1s and a 7. The 2 1s and a 7 suggest the double 7, or 2 times 7. Now, exactly when the Russian ambassador covers the 2 1s and a 7, General Turgidson says,
It's down to a safe level after 2 weeks.
2 weeks, which is a reference to the 2 7s. Then the ambassador, still standing in front of the 2 1s and a 7, says,
You've obviously never heard of cobalt thorium G.
Cobalt, as in the cobalt bomb, has atomic number 27, which again is a reference to the double 7. Also, the G is the 7th letter of the Latin alphabet, and thorium consists of 7 letters and is one of the period 7 elements. Then the ambassador walks further and says,
Cobalt thorium G has a radioactive half-life of 93 years.
93 years. 9 times 3 is 27. Again, we have a reference to the double 7. The doubled 7, or 2 times 7, also is presented in this shot, as we see 7 people times 2 people. And here in this shot are 2 times 7, 14 people present. Here the same, 14 people. The doubled 7 also is doubled by sound, as we can hear General Turgidson saying
34B52.
34B52. 3 plus 4 is 7, and 5 plus 2 is 7. Major Kong says
145 caliber automatic, 2 boxes of ammunition, 4 days concentrated emergency ration, 1 drug issue containing antibiotics, 1 miniature combination Russian phrase book and Bible, $100 in rubles, $100 in gold, 9 packs of chewing gum, 1 issue of prophylactics, 3 lipsticks, 3 pair of nylon stockings,
which eventually results in the number 27. Again, it's 2 times 7. Stanley Kubrick made 13 films. That makes Dr. Strangelove its central film. Stanley has 7 letters. Kubrick has 7 letters, which makes Stanley Kubrick himself a double 7. Stanley Kubrick generally is known for being a film director. Therefore, it's very interesting that the shape of the number 7 resembles the essence of a movie theater. The top line is the movie screen. The diagonal line outlines the space in which the audience is watching the screen, and the point in which the diagonal line disappears is the movie projector, which projects images on the screen. Which is interesting, as the left side of the screen is connected to the right brain, or the subject, which is represented by the movie projector, and the right side of the screen is connected to the left brain, or the object, which is represented by the movie screen. The left side of the screen is connected to the right brain, the place of the spiral's eye, which injects, so to speak, the idea inside the right brain, and then the spiral, so to speak, unfolds onto the big board, or the movie screen. So the idea literally is projected onto a screen, so that we as the audience are able to actually see the idea, which normally would be invisible for us.
That is precisely the idea, General. That is precisely the idea.
Dr. Strangelove therefore is a most interesting movie, as it shares the cinematic essence with its creator Stanley Kubrick through the character of the number 7.
Lovely to meet you.
A necessity for both parties.
Eyes Wide Shut is not about the male, and neither it is about the female. It's about how both are joined. It's the join in the middle, which seems to have everything to do with being a human being.
We're private people. We are human beings. You know, we are human beings.
In contrast to being an individual. It's the middle ground, the thing in between, the bothness, which is central in Eyes Wide Shut. And it's the number 13, which seems to embody this middle ground, this bothness. Therefore, Kubrick's 13th film is about the bothness of things. It's about finding yourself on highly ambiguous middle ground. Let's just first watch a few scenes where we can see how and why Kubrick places the number 13 in the middle. Here we see 2 shots which are joined by a cross dissolve. In the first shot we hear 12 notes. In the second shot, we hear 14 notes. Which suggests that the cross dissolve placed in the middle of the 2 shots belongs to the number 13. Here, Kubrick takes the same 12, 13, 14 series, but now he places them in one shot. In the first half of the shot, we see the number 12, which is hidden right here. In the second half of the shot, we see the number 14. Now the middle ground of this shot appears to be the mailbox. So you could say, okay, the mailbox being associated with the number 13 is just an assumption. But let's now watch this shot. When the stalker takes his 13th step, he is seen behind a mailbox. Or you could say he steps inside the mailbox. If we count the steps in this shot, from the first audible step, we count exactly 13 steps at the moment William is presented behind a mailbox. What's also interesting in this shot is that a red and a blue car pass the mailbox. The colors blue and red play an important role in Ice White Shot, because when the pigments red and blue are combined, it gives the color purple, the color of both, the middle ground color. Also in behind the scenes footage, Kubrick places the colors red and blue in the middle or in the heart of the screen. And it's the blue and red we also see at the heart of Leonardo da Vinci's painting, The Last Supper. So it's the color purple, red and blue combined, which emphasizes the middle ground or bothness in Ice White Shot. Therefore it's interesting that a red and a blue car pass the mailbox. The mailbox is a box for both senders and receivers. In other words, it's a symbol for bothness. Just as a letter is a symbol for bothness, as it belongs to both sender and receiver. Two final examples. When William approaches the college kids, we first see the number 12 right here. Then, when William is checked against the car, we see the number 13 reflected in the window. Here again, William stands in front of the number 13 as there are 13 points in the Christmas tree. Also, the word Christmas tree consists of 13 letters. And then when William walks further, we see the number 14 presented as a doubled 7 right here. The doubled 7 has to do with Kubrick himself, as his name consists out of 2 times 7 is 14 letters. That's why we hear 2 weeks, as in 2 times 7, inside Dr. Strangelove.
It's down to a safe level after 2 weeks.
Full Metal Jacket.
Art's Walk show is going to go out on TV in 2 weeks.
2001: A Space Odyssey.
Well, it's just that for the past 2 weeks.
And also here, an Ice White Shot.
We hope you enjoyed the music tonight. We're going to be here for the next 2 weeks.
I lost in 2 weeks a lot of hair.
What's also interesting in this shot is when William is checked against the car, he joins, so to speak, a blue and a red car. And here we see a purple glow, which again is a combination of the colors blue and red. So again, the bothness is emphasized. And most important, the number 13 again is presented as the middle or central number. Another way of showing that the number 13 is the number of both is found in this scene. We see Sandor Savost and Alice Harford, male and female, rotating exactly 13 times. Which implies that the number 13 is the number which joins both male and female. Also, the name Sandor Savost consists of 13 letters, and as we can see later on, the number 13 also is the number which joins both body and spirit. Interestingly, the name of the actor who plays Sandor Savost is Sky Dumont. Sky refers to spirit, and Dumont is a French surname. Monde is French for earth. So we have sky and earth, spirit and matter. Though Sky Dumont was born in Argentina, he is a German actor.
Nie gehört den Namen. Jetzt falle ich nicht gleich vom Stuhl, aber der Mann hat recht.
The word du is German for you. So what we get out of his name is that Sky Dumont actually means that you are both sky and earth, spirit and matter. But again, that's something to return to later on in this video. So Eyes Wide Shut is Kubrick's 13th film, which means that Eyes Wide Shut is about both the number 1 and the number 3. Number 1 represents the male, the object, the particle. Number 3 represents the female, the subject, the wave. Dr. William Bill Harford has straight hair because he represents the straight number 1. Alice Harford has curled hair because she represents the curled number 3. The hair gel stiffens Bill's hair, which emphasizes the straightness of his hair. Here we see a perfect straight hair split representing the number 1. And here again we see Alice emphasizing with a straight finger a straight line onto Bill's hair. And here also we see Bill's hair representing the straight number 1. There's also many occasions where we could see Alice's hair in the shape of the number 3. Here we see a perfect number 3. Here we see the number 3. And here we see the number 3. And here we see a flipped number 3, which we can also see here, for example. Yet obviously the interesting thing is that the number 3 is associated with the straight line, the number 1. This stresses the importance of the interplay between the number 1 and the number 3. It's not about the numbers individually, it's about the number 1 and 3 at the same time. If we switch back to this shot, we clearly see redeemable. What's important is the interplay between the curls and the straights, the female and the male. Here, Sandor Savost says,
the ones they really wanted.
The word they in this case refers to women, so with the ones, Sandor Savost means the males. In The Mansion, we also see the interplay between the curled number 3 and the straight number 1. The mysterious woman is presented with a 3 and a 1 on both sides, just like Alice already was presented with a 3 and a 1 on both sides. It's a continuous switching, a continuous interplay between the 1 and the 3, the male and the female. Here we see the number 3 on the door. Here in another shot of the same door, we have a better view of the number 3. The number 3 is associated with the female. Then the female is associated with the Christmas tree, or the Christmas 3. The male character is not associated with the number 3, as he doesn't pass the number 3. Yet it's the female character which moves the number 3 into the male character. The male character is the number 1, which is represented by the straight line. So here we have a female associated with the number 3 moving the number 3 into the male, or the number 1. Then the female closes the door, which means that the number 3 and the number 1 now are joined, or female and male character are joined. And this is shown in different ways. The female joins the male, the number 1, with the tree or the 3. Yet the 3 itself consists of all little straight lines or number 1s. This is a way of showing that the number 3 also is the number 1, that 3 and 1 are redeemable. They are in a continuous switching mode, just as one of the college kids says,
"What team's this switch hitter playing for?"
In Eyes Wide Shut, things just keep switching on and off. Same thing we see with the female character, the number 3, who is presented with all straight lines, all number 1s. So again we see the number 3, the female, also being the number 1. Then we see the male, the number 1, pointing at the 3. He points with one finger, implying the number 1. Again, the 3 and the 1 are represented as redeemable. At the moment the male character says,
"Nice tree."
The male puts both hands into his pockets, implying that he's both number 1 and 3. Right after this moment he is joined with the female character, whose hand moves over the 3 to eventually show 3 fingers. Here in this shot we see a male mannequin being associated with the number 1. Next to this male mannequin we see another male mannequin. Interestingly, the male character moves his hand over the area where we see the number 1 in the other mannequin. In this way, one hand of the male character is associated with the number 1. The other hand is associated with the number 3. It's as if the male character is pulling his hand out of the 3. And then when he stands between the number 1 and the number 3, he joins both his hands. He rubs both his hands to show the interplay between the number 1 and the number 3, to show that the number 1 and 3 are redeemable. We already saw how in the mansion the number 3 is associated with the number 1. Interestingly, this shot is quite similar to this shot. On the right we see a 3, and on the left side we see a straight line, which is created out of the contrast between light and dark. And to show that the number 3 and 1 are married, so to speak, Alice emphasizes the number 3 and 1 with her wedding ring. Here the number 3 is emphasized, and here the number 1. Alice's ring finger then joins a male and a female in the background. Again, male and female, 1 and 3, are joined. Then Alice's ring finger and little finger are presented as 2 joined bows, as in the double bow of the number 3. Out of this double bow moves the index finger, which is presented as a straight line. And it's the straight line, the number 1, that eventually joins female and male. So in this way, male and female, 1 and 3, are in constant interplay, in continuous switching mode. In Eyes Wide Shut, one can never really tell if one's looking at a male or a female, at a 1 or a 3. Which takes us to something Carl Jung wrote in the Red Book. In the documentary Carl Jung, Matter of Heart, Jung says the following.
I was always looking for something in between, you know, something that linked that remote past with the present moment.
It's quite fascinating that Carl Jung and Stanley Kubrick were born on the same date, July 26. So it's all the more fascinating that Kubrick obviously made references to Jung in his films.
I think I was trying to suggest something about the duality of man, sir.
The what?
The duality of man, the Jungian thing, sir.
So there's an interesting parallel between Jung and Kubrick for sure. Jung talks about something in between. Kubrick shows the bothness of things. And it's not only in his movies that he shows this. He shows this also in the so-called behind the scenes or between takes footage. And already in his earliest work, Kubrick seems to be aware of the in-betweenness or bothness of things. Here, in Fear and Desire, Kubrick's first feature film, Lieutenant Corby says,
"You see both,"
which sounds like you see both. Also, Lieutenant Corby stresses both men behind him when he says both, and again when he says
our boat.
The 2 men behind him are emphasized. Then we switch to the female, who also says
both,
as in both. And interestingly, we hear Lieutenant Corby, the male character, saying both while we are still looking at a female character. And it's directly after the word both that we switch from the female to the male character.
Yes, that's it. Boat.
Then again, the male character says,
"You see boat?"
And again he stresses both men behind him. But now, right at the moment he says both, the perspective switches from male to female.
"You see boat?"
So again, it's the bothness that is extremely emphasized here on different levels. 4 years earlier, in 1949, Kubrick made this picture for Look magazine. Again, it's the bothness or in-betweenness which is stressed. Between the 2 females, there's a male, and between the 2 males, there's a female. It's like the yin-yang symbol. Inside yin, there's also yang, and inside yang, there's also yin. Of course, the place where all our attention flows to is the place between the female and the male character. There's a cigarette and a little fire at the center of the picture, and it seems to be the fire and the cigarette that join both female and male. And it's quite curious to know that this also makes sense in a geographical way. Nicole Kidman, who plays Alice, was born in Honolulu, Hawaii. Tom Cruise, who plays William, was born in Syracuse, New York. And Madison Edgerton, who plays Helena, was born in Los Angeles, California, which lies almost exactly between Syracuse and Honolulu. So also geographically, Helena is between her parents. She is both. Eyes Wide Shut is Stanley Kubrick's 13th film, which makes Eyes Wide Shut the cinematic equivalent of the number 13. One can approach the number 13 in various ways. One of the ways is to approach the number 13 as being part of a sequence. For example, the Harford family consists of 3 members: Alice Harford, Helena Harford, and William Harford. If we count the letters of each name, we see that the name Alice Harford contains 12 letters, Helena Harford contains 13 letters, and William Harford contains 14 letters. So the Harford family could be approached as a small sequence, namely 12, 13, 14, with the number 13 as its central number. So on the one hand, the number 13 is part of a sequence, yet on the other hand, the number 13 has to be approached as being a central element. And in this way, the number 13 also has to be approached in Eyes Wide Shut. It's not about the number 13 only, it's about the relationship between the number 13 and the other numbers. So this same 12, 13, 14 sequence also appears at Rainbow Fashions. Tuxedo rental consists of 12 letters. Costume rental has 13 letters, and then we have the word rainbow, which consists of 7 letters, but these letters are meant to be doubled, as we see a rainbow above the word rainbow, and this rainbow consists of 7 colors or stripes. So we have a doubled 7, which results in the number 14. The doubled 7 also can be seen in the previous shot, right here. So again, we see the sequence 12, 13, 14, with the number 13 being the central number of the sequence. Another quite more complex and more subtle example of the number 13 being a part of a sequence we can see in Dr. William Harford's office. If we count this group of light stripes, we count to 12. This group consists of 13 light stripes, and in the next shot we count 14 light stripes behind Lisa. So again, we see the same 12, 13, 14 sequence. The number 13 being part of a sequence also can be heard in Shostakovich's Second Waltz, which is used in the opening sequence of Eyes Wide Shut. First we hear a rhythm which consists of 12 beats. Then we hear 13 notes. And after that we hear 40 notes. So again we have a 12, 13, 14 sequence. Also we hear 2 times the step from 13 to 14. And after these 2 steps we hear again 13 notes. Helena Harford is the number 13, and therefore Helena joins the numbers 12 and 14. Or in other words, Helena joins her parents, Alice and William. So Helena, the number 13, could be seen as the joint between 12 and 14, the joint between Alice and William. An even better word for joint would be the word heart, as the heart is a dynamic joint, a joint which is alive. So in this way Helena could be seen as the heart of the family Harford. The number 13 being the heart could be applied to this shot. We see William, the number 14, walking towards Alice, the number 12. Yet the number 14 of course needs the number 13 in order to get to the number 12. Now interestingly, we hear the 13th note right at the moment William passes the bat.
Now listen, you know we're running a little late.
The bat, which just like the number 13 represents a gateway. In this case the bat represents the gateway between waking and sleeping. Also we see the doorway sliding into the frame right when we hear the 13th note. So the 13th note is associated with the bat and the doorway. Now if we count William's steps from this point, we eventually count 13 steps at the moment the gateway is fully visible. And we count 14 steps at the moment William is presented fully inside the gateway. Therefore the step from 13 to 14 could be seen as the final step, the step that leads one into the doorway. And because it is the step from 13 to 14, one could say that this final step, is through the heart, as this step goes through the number 13, the number of the heart. And to emphasize that the step from 13 to 14 indeed is the step through the heart, Kubrick placed a heart-shaped chair in the background, which is visible at the exact moment William takes his step through the heart. Here we have a better view at the heart-shaped chair. So in this way the final step, the step which leads to the doorway, is through the heart. The step from 13 to 14 also is emphasized in this shot, where we see 13 illuminated floors. Yet there's also 2 floors, one above and one below, which are only halfly visible. So here again in this shot, we could say that the step from 13 to 14 is emphasized. So it isn't about the number 13 alone as being an isolated number. It's more about how the number 13 is related to the other numbers. And as presented in this video, it seems that the number 13 functions like a joint, or better put, the number 13 functions like a heart. Helena Harford, the number 13, is the heart of the Harford family. Helena, the number 13, joins her parents Alice and William, numbers 12 and 14. There's various ways of approaching the number 13, yet it seems that the number 13, however it is approached, points to an underlying essence or character which has everything to do with the symbol of the heart. This will be discussed in the next part. Thanks for watching.